Oh, we already got married yesterday. Wait, what did you say? We only invited special people. Special people? Yes, she replied, smiling like the words meant nothing. It was just us, a few close friends, and family. Family, I whispered. I see. And in that moment, as her laughter filled the silence, I realized something that would change my life forever. I had spent 3 years buying every piece of their happiness, except a place for myself in it. Hello, my beautiful Real Hope Diaries family. Thank you for clicking on today's story. I promise you, it's one that will touch your heart and maybe even make you rethink what love and family really mean. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you're new, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world to me. It's what keeps these stories alive, one truth at a time. Before we begin, let me say a short prayer for you. May this week bring you peace that no one can steal. May your efforts be seen, your kindness returned, and your heart protected from people who mistake your love for weakness. And may every lesson life gives you lead you closer to joy. Amen. My name is Renate Richter, and for most of my life I believed that love, when given freely, always came back. When my husband passed 10 years ago, my world fell quiet. The house that once rang with laughter turned into a museum of memories. I filled the silence the only way I knew how, by giving. So when my son Max met a young woman named Lena, I saw it as a second chance at life. She was polite, pretty, soft-spoken, maybe a little distant, but I brushed it off as shyness. She called me Mrs. Richter at first, then slowly began to call me Mom. It made my heart swell every time. I wanted her to feel welcome, to feel family. When they moved into their tiny apartment, I told Max not to worry about the rent until he was on his feet. Every month, I sent $500. When they needed furniture, I bought it. When their refrigerator broke, I ordered a new one the same day. I told myself it wasn't charity, it was love. Max used to say, "Mom, we don't know what we'd do without you." And each time, I'd smile through tears, believing I was building a bond stronger than blood. When they announced their engagement, I cried from happiness. I remember standing in the living room, phone pressed to my chest, whispering, "Finally, something good." I wanted to be the perfect mother-in-law. I bought a pale pink dress, soft, elegant, the kind of color that made you look kind. I imagined myself standing beside Max on his wedding day, smiling as he kissed his bride. For weeks, I planned every detail. I cleaned my house from top to bottom, told my sister Diana in Chicago about the big day, and even saved $1,000 as a wedding gift. I could almost see it, family gathered, laughter, photos, Lena hugging me and saying, "We couldn't have done this without you." But that day never came. It happened on a Sunday morning. The sunlight was spilling through the window, and the smell of fresh coffee filled my kitchen. I had been waiting weeks for an update on the wedding date, so I dialed Max's number with a smile. "Hey, sweetheart," I said when he answered. "So, when's the big day? I need to mark it on my calendar." There was a pause, an awkward, heavy pause. Then, before Max could speak, I heard Lena's voice in the background, cheerful and bright. "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." At first, I thought she was joking. But the silence on the line told me she wasn't. The words hit like a slap. Special people. For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. My fingers tightened around the mug until I realized hot coffee was spilling onto my hand. Max tried to explain, said it was small, private, intimate. Lena giggled somewhere in the background. Intimate. Private. Without me. I managed to whisper congratulations before hanging up, afraid that if I stayed on the line another second, they'd hear my voice break. The moment I put down the phone, the world went still. The house that once felt safe now felt foreign. I stared at the pictures of Max as a child, his smiling face, his eyes that used to light up when he said, "I love you, Mom." And now? He couldn't even look me in the eye while his wife erased me from the biggest day of his life. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder, the clock ticking, the wind against the window. I sat there in my pink dress, still hanging from the closet door, staring at it until the sunrise bled through the curtains. The next day, my neighbor Claire came over. "Did you see this?" she asked, holding out her tablet. On the screen was a smiling photograph of Max and Lena standing under a flower arch, champagne glasses raised high. Her family surrounded them, her parents, her siblings, even cousins. Everyone laughing, everyone glowing. Everyone but me. And the dress she wore, the white gown with lace sleeves. I'd given her $800 the month before, for personal expenses. I felt something collapse inside me. It wasn't jealousy. It was something colder, something that felt like the slow breaking of a heart that had given too much. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat in the dark, staring at the wall, trying to understand how love could turn into invisibility. By morning, I realized the truth. I had been a wallet disguised as a mother. A week later, the phone rang again. When I saw Lena's name on the screen, I almost laughed. I answered, curious about what she could possibly want. Her voice was trembling. "Renate, the rent's overdue. The landlord's threatening to kick us out. You must have forgotten to make the transfer." For the first time, I felt no panic, only calm. "I didn't forget," I said. There was a pause. "You didn't? But we'll lose the apartment." "You won't," I replied softly. "You'll just have to pay for it yourselves." She tried to sound gentle, pleading. "Renate, please, don't do this. We thought." I stopped her. "You thought I'd keep paying, even after you told me I wasn't special enough to attend your wedding?" The silence on the line was sharp. "Renate," she whispered, "we made a mistake." "Yes," I said. "And now I'm correcting mine." I hung up. For a long time, I sat in my chair, staring out the window. The sun was setting, painting the world in gold and orange. I realized that for the first time in years, my heart wasn't racing in anxiety. It was steady. That night, I opened a notebook and began writing. Every expense, every gift, every cent I had poured into their lives. 3 years of rent. Food. Gifts. Emergencies. Car loan. Furniture. $33,400. I stared at that number until the lines on the page blurred. Then, quietly, I whispered, "Never again." That night, I cried, but not because of grief. The tears were of realization. For years, I had mistaken love for sacrifice, respect for silence. But love doesn't ask you to disappear. When morning came, I stood in front of the mirror. The reflection looking back at me was older, yes, but stronger. The kindness was still there, but behind it was a new kind of power, the kind that comes from finally saying no. I got dressed, grabbed my handbag, and walked to the bank. The air felt lighter than it had in years. Mr. Klein, the branch manager, smiled when he saw me. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Richter." Same transfer as always? I shook my head. No, Mr. Klein. I'd like to cancel all the transfers to my son's account. He blinked, surprised. All of them? Yes. Every one. He typed for a moment, then handed me a paper to sign. Are you sure, ma'am? I'm sure, I said, signing my name with steady hands. As he printed the final confirmation, he smiled kindly. I've seen you be very generous over the years. Maybe it's time to be generous to yourself. Those words stayed with me. When I walked out of the bank, the sunlight felt warmer, the breeze gentler. For the first time in years, I felt the ground solid beneath my feet. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a fool. I was simply done. That evening, my phone rang non-stop, Max, then Lena, then Max again. I didn't answer. I placed the phone on the table, turned off the ringer, and sat by the window with a cup of coffee. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky crimson. I watched it fade slowly, peacefully. And for the first time in my life, silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like freedom. The morning after Renate canceled the transfers was unusually quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't ask for peace but promised it. The air in her house felt lighter, cleaner, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. She sipped her coffee slowly, watching the sun pour through the lace curtains. For once, her thoughts weren't filled with worry or obligation. She didn't know it yet, but the silence she had earned was about to be tested. It started 3 days later. The crunch of tires on gravel broke the calm of her morning. When she looked through the window, her heart sank. 3 cars had pulled up to the curb, her son's old sedan, Lena's SUV, and a third, black, polished, unfamiliar. Renate stood frozen. Before she could even reach the front door, she heard the sound of a key turning. The lock clicked, the door swung open, and voices filled the hall. They still had keys. She stepped forward slowly, the rhythm of her heartbeat matching the ticking of the clock behind her. There they were. Max sat on her sofa, elbows on his knees, his face buried in his hands. Lena paced in front of him, agitation written in every step. And at her dining table stood a man in a gray suit, middle-aged, neatly groomed, his eyes scanning through papers that clearly weren't his. Her papers. Renate's voice was calm, but it carried the kind of firmness that comes from years of being overlooked. What's going on here? They all turned at once. Lena was the first to speak, her tone brittle with false warmth. Renate. Thank God you're here. We need to talk. Renate's gaze drifted to the papers on her table, bank statements, property documents, insurance files. The realization hit her like a stone to the chest. What exactly are you talking about while standing in my house, uninvited, going through my things? The man in the suit stepped forward, extending a hand she didn't take. Mrs. Richter, I'm Dr. Fisher. I represent your son and daughter-in-law. They've reached out with concerns regarding your mental and financial well-being. Renate blinked. My what? Max finally lifted his head. Mom, you've been acting strange lately. Not answering calls, canceling payments. We just want to make sure you're okay. Renate studied him for a long moment. The boy she'd raised, who used to build Lego towers on her living room rug, now stood before her with a stranger's guilt in his eyes. I'm fine, she said evenly. I just decided to stop financing 2 grown adults who don't seem to appreciate it. Lena stepped closer, her voice trembling with indignation. We never asked you to. Renate laughed softly, a dry, humorless sound. No, dear. You just learned how to expect it. Dr. Fisher cleared his throat. Mrs. Richter, sometimes at your age, it's easy to make rash or emotionally driven decisions. Your family only wants what's best for you. Renate's eyes sharpened. At my age? I've handled my finances for over 40 years. You want to know what's rash? Barging into my home and assuming I've lost my mind because I finally said no. The man faltered. Lena's voice rose again, brittle now, the mask slipping. Renate, you can't keep punishing us. We're family. You're acting like a stranger. Renate looked around the room, her furniture, her photographs, her life, occupied by people who had turned her kindness into entitlement. A stranger, she said quietly. You made me one when you said I wasn't special enough to be at your wedding. That silenced even the lawyer. The ticking clock was the only sound in the room. Dr. Fisher broke it, sliding a folder across the table. Mrs. Richter, we've prepared a simple document, a temporary power of attorney. It'll allow your son to manage your finances until you're ready. Renate stared at it. Then, without a word, she walked to the kitchen trash bin and dropped it in. The sound of paper hitting metal echoed like thunder. Lena gasped. You can't do that. I already did. Max stood, voice breaking between anger and fear. Mom, please. This isn't you. You're letting bitterness cloud your judgment. Renate turned to face him, eyes clear, voice low but strong. No, Max. For the first time, my judgment isn't clouded at all. She took a step forward, her tone cutting through the room like glass. You didn't come here because you're worried. You came here because you're losing control. I stopped being your mother the day you started treating me like an ATM. Dr. Fisher gathered his papers quickly, clearly realizing the battle was lost. We'll see you in court, Mrs. Richter. Renate smiled coldly. Good. Maybe there, someone will finally see what you've been doing to me. They left one by one, but Max lingered at the door. His voice was small, defeated. Mom, this will end badly for you. Renate met his gaze. It already did. I just finally noticed. When the door closed, the silence that followed was heavier than before, but this time, it didn't suffocate her. It protected her. That night, Renate sat in her living room, staring at the soft glow of the lamp on the wall. Her reflection in the window looked back, older, wiser, and no longer afraid. For the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking about what Max and Lena needed. She was thinking about what she deserved. The next morning, she packed a folder of documents, bank statements, receipts, letters, and went to see Mr. Weber, the lawyer who had helped with her husband's estate years ago. When she walked into his office, he smiled warmly. Mrs. Richter. It's been ages. What brings you here? Renate returned the smile faintly. A lesson in generosity, Mr. Weber. And a need to protect what's left of me. For 3 hours, she told him everything, from the years of payments to the attempted power of attorney. He listened quietly, jotting notes, his expression growing darker. When she finished, he leaned back. What they did isn't just ungrateful, it's illegal. This is a case of elder financial abuse. Renate blinked. So I'm not losing my mind? He smiled gently. Not at all. You're finally regaining it. Together, they filed for a restraining order preventing Max and Lena from accessing her home or finances. He also helped her update her will and restructure her accounts with protective clauses. Before she left, Mr. Weber said something she'd never forget. For years, you gave them power. Today, you took it back. That afternoon, Renate walked into Summer's hardware store, the same shop where she had bought tools for her son's apartment repairs so many times before. Mr. Summer greeted her with his usual grin. "Mrs. Richter. What can I do for you today? Something for Max again?" She smiled softly. "No, not this time. This is for me. I need new locks. The best ones you've got." He nodded, surprised but approving. "Good choice." While she looked through the shelves, his son Ethan came out from the back, a tall, kind-eyed young man who handled home security installations. "If you're upgrading locks," he said, "I can add security cameras too. Motion sensors, full coverage. It'll make you feel safe again." Renate didn't hesitate. "Do it." By evening, her home had new locks, an alarm system, and cameras on every corner. For the first time in years, when she turned the key, the click didn't just mean the door was locked, it meant she was safe. That night, she slept deeply and dreamlessly. The peace lasted 2 days. Then, a number she didn't recognize flashed on her phone. When she answered, Lena's voice burst through, sharp and panicked. "Renate, what did you do? The bank froze our accounts. They said there's a fraud report." Renate's voice was calm. "I didn't report fraud, Lena. I reported theft. There's a difference. You can't do this." Lena shouted. "You're ruining our lives." "No," Renate replied quietly. "I'm just letting you live them." "Max is furious." Lena's tone cracked. "He said you've turned against your own son." Renate's grip on the phone tightened, but her voice stayed soft. "I didn't turn against my son. I turned away from people who stopped treating me like his mother." Lena's voice trembled now, desperation creeping in. "You're making this ugly, Renate. You can't win against us." Renate smiled faintly. "I don't need to win. I just need to stop losing." And with that, she ended the call. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived, official, heavy, stamped in red ink. They were trying to have her declared mentally incompetent. Renate felt her knees weaken as she sank into her chair. For a moment, fear tried to crawl back into her chest. Then she took a deep breath. No. She had come too far. She called Mr. Weber immediately. He reviewed the papers, shaking his head. "This is desperation, Mrs. Richter. They have no grounds, but they're hoping to scare you into submission." She smiled. Then they picked the wrong woman. On the morning of the hearing, Renate dressed with care. She wore a navy suit, simple, sharp, the same one she'd worn to her husband's funeral. It reminded her of survival. When she entered the courtroom, Max and Lena were already there, whispering to their lawyer. Lena avoided her eyes. Max looked pale. The judge entered, stern and composed. Dr. Fisher began his statement, voice smooth but shallow. "Your Honor, my clients are concerned about Mrs. Richter's declining mental state. She's made erratic financial decisions, including false reports and abrupt withdrawal of support." Mr. Weber let him finish, then stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence." He laid down a folder. Bank records showing $33,400 in transfers over 3 years from Mrs. Richter to the petitioners. Messages requesting money for rent, personal expenses, and emergencies. And finally, video footage from her security cameras showing the petitioners entering her home without consent. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Lena's face drained of color. Max's shoulders slumped. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Richter, would you like to say anything?" Renate stood. Her voice trembled at first, but steadied as she spoke. I may be 71, she said, but I'm not confused. For years, I gave without asking for anything. I thought love meant never saying no. But love without respect isn't love, it's control. I finally stopped mistaking silence for peace. The judge nodded. Petition denied. Mrs. Richter, you may wish to pursue restitution. When the gavel struck, the sound echoed like thunder. Max and Lena stood frozen as Renate walked past them. For the first time in years, she didn't lower her eyes. Freedom didn't come all at once, it came in waves. First, there was the silence. Sweet, golden silence in a house that now belonged only to her. Then came the laughter, tentative at first, then full, genuine laughter that filled her kitchen as she baked for neighbors and painted by the window. She started joining the local art club, volunteering at the community center, even meeting old friends she hadn't seen in years. One evening, sitting under the fading light of the garden, she whispered to her late husband's memory, I finally did it, love. I stopped mistaking giving for living. Weeks later, a soft knock came at her door. When she opened it, Max stood there, alone. His eyes were tired, his face gaunt. Mom, he said quietly. Can we talk? Renate hesitated, then stepped aside. He looked around the living room, the air heavy with memories. Lena's gone, he said finally. She left. Took the car, the money, everything. Renate said nothing. I'm sorry, he whispered. For all of it. I thought I was building a life, but I was just using yours. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Renate said softly, I forgive you, Max. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll go back to being who I was. He nodded slowly. I know. I just wanted to say thank you, for finally teaching me what strength looks like. Before he left, he hugged her, a real hug, not one born of guilt or expectation. And as he stepped out into the fading light, Renate realized that sometimes, the people who hurt you the most can still find their way back, but only after you stop rescuing them. Months passed. Life became simpler, quieter, brighter. Renate's mornings began with gratitude instead of worry. She learned to enjoy her own company, to celebrate small victories, a good cup of coffee, a blooming flower, an afternoon nap without guilt. She recorded a short message for her storytelling group, words that soon spread far beyond her circle. You can love deeply and still walk away. You can forgive without forgetting. Because the most dangerous lie we tell ourselves is that being needed is the same as being loved. It's not. Real love never demands your silence, and real peace never costs your dignity. If you're still listening, thank you. May you never be blind to the difference between love and obligation. May you find the strength to close doors that only open to take from you. And may you always remember, walking away isn't the end, it's the beginning of self-respect. Amen. Renate never saw Lena again. But sometimes, she received postcards from Max, pictures of new beginnings, messages of apology and quiet pride. Each time she read one, she smiled, not because she needed his validation, but because she finally had peace. And peace, she'd learned, is the rarest form of love there is. This was Real Hope Diaries. True stories. Real lessons. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Because hope is real, when you stop giving it to those who waste it.